They say grief comes in waves, but that day at the church, it felt more like a trickle. I stood in the front row, black tie cinched like a noose, blinking at the cheap smile photo on Dad's memorial program. The one where he looked a little too smug, a little too polished, like he knew something we didn't. And God, he did. The church smelled like lilies and stale incense. The kind of place meant to force reverence down your throat, like communion wafers. My mother sat next to me, clutching tissues like they were the only things holding her together. My sister Beth stared ahead, face empty, lips cracked from grief or silence. It was hard to tell. We buried him in St. Agnes Cemetery, just as he requested. Simple, Catholic, contrite. I didn't cry. It wasn't until 2 weeks later, when I got the call from the executor, that things began to rot. His voice was careful, bureaucratic, already receding into the cold indifference of probate and protocols. Mr. Meyers, he said, there are some items in your father's personal effects I think you should see in person. It's sensitive. Sensitive turned out to be a neat stack of letters wrapped in a red velvet ribbon, hidden inside a hollowed-out copy of The Old Man and the Sea, tucked behind fake books in his office. Hemingway would have been insulted. I was disgusted. The letters were love notes. Dozens of them, all from the same woman, not my mother. Her name was Diane. At first, I thought maybe it was a brief affair. A lapse in judgment. People cheat. People do worse. But these letters, they spanned years, years. Sentences like the kids asked when they'd see you again, and happy 12th anniversary, my love, crawled off the pages like leeches. I read every one of them sitting in Dad's leather recliner, the one he always told me to stay away from as a kid. Felt like I was finally being let into his world, only to find it rotting from the inside out. He had another life, another family, another goddamn version of himself. I confronted my mother that same night, slammed the stack of letters on the kitchen counter. She looked at them like I'd set down a pile of dead birds. Did you know? Her silence was almost too long. Then, yes, the world tilted. You knew? She nodded. Her face was porcelain, uncracked, but fragile. I found out 10 years ago. He promised he ended it. I wanted to believe him. So you just let it go. What was I supposed to do, Adam? You were in college. Beth was in high school. Leave him. Tear everything apart for a truth that wouldn't fix anything. I couldn't speak. My fists curled so tight my knuckles turned white. The betrayal wasn't just his anymore. It was hers too. That night, I couldn't sleep. I pored over every artifact of his life I could find. His tax records, his journals, his calendar apps. I hacked into his email. I was a cybersecurity analyst before this shitshow began. Breaking into a dead man's inbox was easy. What I found made my blood boil. 2 sets of family photos, hidden folders, vacations labeled with codes. He'd taken her and her kids, to the same beach house he took us to every summer. He had a son named Matthew, and a daughter named Lily. He gave them the same middle names as Beth and me. That night I threw a glass across the room. It shattered like my childhood. The next morning, I drove 4 hours to the address I found listed on one of his insurance policies. Suburban Maryland, middle class, a white ranch house with blue shutters and a wind chime on the porch. I rang the bell. A boy answered. Maybe 18, my height. Same jawline, same eyes. Can I help you? He asked. I stared at him. He looked like me. He looked too much like me. Is your mother home? He called for her. Diane appeared in the doorway moments later, wearing an apron and a look of pleasant confusion. Yes? I'm Adam Meyers, I said. She blinked, and then her face crumpled. We sat in her kitchen. The boy, Matthew, my half-brother, because that's what he was, wasn't he? Lingered nearby, curious, but cautious. She asked him to give us space. She poured coffee. I didn't touch it. He said you didn't know, she said. He said a lot of things. She looked at me, full of pity. I'm sorry for all of it. I loved him. I didn't know about you until years into it. He said you were a distant cousin, someone from his past. When I found out the truth, it was too late. We had a life. So you stayed. He made it easy. Trips, gifts. He knew how to make guilt look like generosity. I swallowed back bile. She handed me a photo album. I shouldn't have taken it, but I did. Pictures of them laughing, playing, wrapped in Christmas lights. Dad smiling in ways he never did with us. Smiling like a man without weight. I left without saying goodbye. Driving home, I thought about every bedtime story he read me, every baseball game he cheered at, every lecture about integrity, all of it, wrapped in poison. My father died a stranger. I had more digging to do, because this was just the surface, and I was done being his good little boy. The thing about betrayal is, it doesn't settle, it festers. A week after visiting Diane, I tore apart my father's study again, not just the desk and bookshelves this time. I pulled back the rugs, unscrewed vent covers, tapped on walls for hollows like some kind of paranoid archaeologist. Somewhere inside me, I knew he left more behind. Men like him always do. The safe was under the floorboards. Beneath the Persian rug, he always insisted stay, just so. 3 panels up, nailed in but not glued. I used a crowbar and a curse word. The safe itself was old. Mechanical dial, scratched metal face. No digital nonsense, the kind you'd expect in a thriller novel or an old spy movie. The combination was his badge number. I didn't hesitate. 3 turns left, 2 right, and a twist. It clicked. Inside were documents, folders thick with contracts, photos, cash, a handgun, another passport with a different name. Who the hell was Jonathan Fields? His photo was there, clean-shaven, wearing glasses I'd never seen. A New Jersey address, valid until 2027. His signature almost the same curve as my father's usual one, only slightly altered, like he practiced forging himself. My father wasn't just a liar, he was a ghost. I spent 3 nights sifting through the files. Offshore accounts, wire transfers to places like Belize and Zurich, a deed to a condo in Florida under Fields' name. I pulled up the address on Google Maps, a beachfront, pristine, gated. I half expected to find a vacation log too. Then came the photos, ones I wished I could burn from my memory. My father, with a 3rd woman, young, too young, and a child, a 3rd child, a baby. There was a birth certificate, Rachel Fields, born 2017, father's name, Jonathan Fields. I stared at the paper until the room blurred. 3 families. I felt like I was hallucinating. I touched the paper, hoping it would feel unreal. This wasn't infidelity anymore. This was pathology, compartmentalized madness. Every one of us was a separate world. He curated, lied to, and left behind. I looked in the mirror and wondered if I'd ever really seen his face. I called Beth, told her to come over. When she saw the passport and the birth certificate, her lips parted. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She laughed. "Of course," she said. "Of course there's more. You okay?" She sat down slowly. "You ever wonder why he traveled so much for work? Why Mom never asked questions? Why he'd disappear for weekends and come back with a tan and a headache?" I nodded. "I used to think he was cheating," she said. "But just one woman. Just a fling. Not a universe." We stared at the files like they might start breathing.
"What do we do with this?" I asked.
She didn't answer, because we both knew. We'd do what he never did. We'd tell the truth. Before we could act, I had to know more. I needed to see the condo. I needed to meet the other woman, if she even existed. So I booked a flight to Florida, under my own name, took 3 days off work, and told no one. The gate at the condo didn't even blink when I gave the Fields' name. They let me in like I belonged. I knocked on the door of Unit 36. A woman answered, maybe mid-30s, beautiful in the exhausted way single mothers often are. Long dark hair tied back, eyes wary. "Yes, I'm Adam, Jonathan's son." Her face drained, she nearly collapsed in the doorway. Her name was Kyra. She was a yoga instructor, met my father, Jonathan, at a wellness retreat. She said he saved her life. He showed up when I needed someone most. He helped with Rachel. He was here for every birthday, every scraped knee. She led me inside. There were toys scattered on the floor, a baby photo framed in the hallway, Rachel, gap-toothed and happy, sitting on his shoulders. He said he'd been divorced, that his past was complicated, that he didn't want to bring baggage into our lives. I nodded slowly. Who brought a goddamn freight train? Kara covered her face and sobbed. I didn't comfort her. I couldn't. Because I didn't know who deserved my sympathy anymore. That night, I sat on the beach near the condo, watched the tide crawl in like it was dragging guilt behind it. I thought about Rachel, how she'd grow up asking who her father really was. How she'd look in the mirror and wonder what parts of her were borrowed from a man who lied through 3 lives. I thought about Beth, about my mother, about Diane, about Matthew and Lily. We were a gallery of victims curated by a master manipulator. I lit a cigarette. I'd sworn I'd quit years ago. The smoke tasted like ash and memory. He wasn't dead. Not really. He lived on in our confusion, our rage, our broken reflections. I closed my eyes and whispered, "You bastard." When I returned home, Beth had already begun digging. She'd contacted a lawyer. She wanted to know if there were legal grounds to sue the estate, freeze the assets, maybe expose it all. This isn't just betrayal, she said. This is fraud, maybe criminal, maybe more. I admired her fire. It kept me from crumbling. We agreed to one thing first. Mom had to know, really know, not just that he cheated, but that she was one chapter in a trilogy of lies. So we told her, and that was the night I saw something die in her eyes. My mother didn't speak for a full minute after we told her. She sat at the edge of the dining room chair, eyes glazed, staring not at us, but somewhere far behind us, like she was watching something unravel in slow motion. Beth stood by her side. Me, leaning against the wall, the old grandfather clock ticked louder than usual, a metronome of disillusionment. How long? Mum finally asked, her voice raspy. We don't know, Beth said. At least 20 years, maybe longer. Mom pressed her fingers to her temples. 3 families, she whispered. 3. The silence that followed was more brutal than any shouting could have been. When she looked at me, her face twisted with something between apology and shame. I let him lie to me, she said. I let him. I knew. I just didn't want to know. I didn't know what to say. There wasn't a damn thing I could say. She looked down at her hands. He used to say he'd never leave us. That family meant everything. God, what a lie. Beth and I exchanged a glance. We were past sympathy, past anger. We were somewhere cold. Beyond, he left us a trail of rot, Beth said, and we need to clean it up. We met with the attorney the next morning. A grim man named Halverston, with a receding hairline and the patience of a glacier. When we showed him the files, the birth certificates, the bank transfers, he didn't flinch. You're not the first, he said calmly. You won't be the last. I've seen worse. How is that possible? I snapped. How does someone maintain 3 lives and no one notices? Because most people see what they want to see, he said. They confuse consistency with truth. And some liars, well, they're just really, really good. We laid out our plan. Freeze the assets. Inform the other families. Push for posthumous fraud charges. A legal mess, sure, but it felt like justice. Or something like it. We need proof. He misappropriated funds, Halverston warned. Not just betrayal, financial deception, fraud. Maybe insurance fraud, inheritance manipulation. That kind of thing. Then we find it, I said. Whatever it takes. Beth nodded. No more secrets. We returned to the house. My father's office was still a wreck. I pulled apart drawer linings, scanned USB drives, ran deep forensic scans on his laptop, buried in a folder labeled golf receipts. I found PDFs of internal documents, Fernie expense reports, full 5 mileage logs, forged client invoices. He'd been skimming for years. From the company, from his retirement accounts, from ours. This is enough, I told Beth, tossing the laptop on the table. This is more than enough. She picked up one of the reports, eyes scanning. He used my social security number in a dummy trust, she whispered. My stomach turned. What? She showed me. There it was, her full legal name. A fabricated investment portfolio. He used my identity. I couldn't breathe. The next day we returned to Halverston with our findings. He blinked slowly, then began making calls. This is gonna court, he said, and it's gonna be ugly. Let it be. I felt hollow, but somewhere under the ash was heat. A pulse. Let it burn. Weeks passed. Subpoenas were drafted. Assets frozen. We mailed copies of our findings to Diane and Kyra, each with a letter attached. We didn't blame them. We didn't want revenge. We wanted Kyra called a week later. Her voice was shaking. I didn't know, she kept repeating. I swear, I didn't know. You don't have to apologize to me, I said. You didn't lie. He did. Rachel asks for him every day. What do I tell her? I didn't answer, because I didn't know. One night, unable to sleep, I found myself in the garage. My father's old tool bench sat untouched since the funeral. On a whim, I pried open the bottom drawer, another envelope. Inside, a single note in his handwriting. To the one who finds this, I'm sorry, I wanted to be better. But I didn't know how to live just one life. I read it 5 times. It meant nothing. It meant everything. I crumpled the note and threw it into the trash. Mine doesn't speak much these days. She walks the garden path every morning, lips pressed tight. Her eyes look years older.
Beth took a leave from work.
She started therapy. I think I might too. As for me, I watch people now, closely. I wonder what masks they wear. I wonder how many lives they live inside their heads. I wonder how many truths they've buried. Sometimes I walk by the cemetery. I don't stop. Let him rot in silence. He doesn't deserve my grief. He doesn't deserve a goddamn thing. The court date loomed. A brutal legal fog settled over everything. Emails, depositions, accountants poring over spreadsheets, lawyers arguing over intent. I used to spend my days debugging systems. Now I was untangling my father's network of lies. Beth and I worked side by side, twin hammers pounding at the coffin of our childhood. We uncovered more. A safe deposit box in Delaware, with bearer bonds and a set of handwritten letters. These not to any of us, but to an unnamed recipient. They read like confessions, but ended with no signature. Beth said they were to himself. I thought they were to the man he wished he'd been. One letter began, "If you're reading this, I failed again." Another, "I wanted to make each of you feel like you were the only ones." He succeeded in that, until we all met. Yes, we met. It was Beth's idea. An awkward, barely legal meeting arranged at a neutral spot, some rented hall attached to a Lutheran church in New Jersey. Beige walls, bad lighting, too many folding chairs. Kyra came. She brought Rachel. Diane came too, clutching a handbag like a shield. Matthew and Lily didn't speak much. Matthew stared at his phone. Lily refused to make eye contact. Beth kept checking her watch. I couldn't stop studying Rachel, how she played with a plastic dinosaur, humming softly, completely oblivious to the room's gravity. My mother didn't come. She said she had nothing to say to anyone who had been part of his other lives. I couldn't blame her. We sat in a circle. Someone, maybe Diane, said we should all introduce ourselves. It was ridiculous. We were blood, and we were strangers. "I'm Adam," I said. "Oldest, I guess." Beth went next. Then Matthew, reluctantly. Then Diane cleared her throat. "I didn't know," she said. "Not at first. Not for a long time." Kyra looked over, eyes tight. "He told me he was divorced. Twice. That he was trying to do better." Beth raised an eyebrow. "Did he ever tell you he had 2 other children?" "No. Just mistakes. He never called them what they were." "People," I said. "We're people." Rachel dropped her dinosaur. The clatter silenced everyone. We didn't argue. Not really. No one wanted to blame each other. It was all smoke from the same burning house. But pain leaked out anyway. Diane cried. Kyra left the room twice. Beth snapped at me when I tried to mediate. "You always try to fix things," she hissed. "Like that makes any of this fixable." It doesn't. I know that. "Then stop pretending it does." We ended early. People left with damp eyes and heavy silences. I stayed to help clean up. As I stacked chairs, Rachel came up to me. "Did my daddy lie to you too?" I knelt, looked her in the eyes. "Yeah, he did. I miss him anyway." And somehow, That hurt most of all. Later that night, I drove home in the rain, the kind of storm that blurs stop signs and streetlights, where every corner feels like a memory trying to drown you. I pulled over once and screamed into the steering wheel. The rage had no target anymore. He was gone. The damage was not. Back at the house, I sat with Mom. She was folding laundry in the living room, like it was any other Thursday. "You met them?" she asked. "Yeah, all of them." She didn't ask for details, just nodded. "I hope they hate him too," she said. Then softer, "I hope they loved him." A little. Before it all broke, I couldn't answer. Because I didn't know what was worse, being fooled by someone you hate, or loving someone you never really knew. The court issued its judgment in silence. Assets divided, trusts revoked, liabilities split. In the final ruling, he was labeled a fraud. On paper, that's all he became. I closed the file and stared out the window for a long time. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt vacant. Then came the final envelope. Mailed to my house. No return address. Inside was a photograph. Me, age 9. Sitting on his shoulders at the zoo, grinning like I didn't know the world could burn. On the back, scrawled in familiar ink, "The best lie I ever lived was you." 2 months after the court ruling, I got a call from a woman named Marsha. She worked IT at my father's former company. "We were clearing his server account," she said. "There's a folder marked private you should probably see." It was encrypted. Took us a while to crack. Why not just delete it? Because he made sure it would flag someone if anyone tried. "Your name's in it, Adam. So is your sister's." Marsha sent over the files through a secure link. 48 videos. Dozens of audio memos. Notes, written in frantic bursts. Voice messages filled with half-coherent regret. He'd been talking to someone. Maybe himself. Maybe to us. Maybe to the version of himself he kept hidden under every layer. The videos weren't dated, but they followed a thread. A descent. "Beth will hate me forever," one clip began. "She's too smart, too sharp, she'll see the cracks. I always worried she'd look too closely." Another. "I wanted Adam to take over the house, to forgive me someday. I know he won't, but I hope he'll understand why I had to split, why it all had to be divided." Understand? No. But I would watch every second, because hating him didn't stop the need to know him. The footage showed a man unraveling slowly. By clip 20, he looked thinner, dark circles, paranoid glances. Like guilt had settled in behind his eyes and made a nest. "I lied to survive," he said in one video, but the lies became oxygen. I couldn't breathe truth anymore. Another. "I thought I could raise all of them, love all of them. I was wrong." He cried in one. For 10 minutes straight. No words. Just sobbing. I watched that one 3 times. Not for empathy, but to try and see if the tears were real or just another performance. Beth refused to watch them. "I don't need more ghosts," she said. "I'm done." I wasn't. I couldn't be. The videos weren't closure. They were autopsy. One message, near the end, caught me off guard. "Adam," he said, looking directly into the camera. "You were the only one who asked questions. Even as a kid, I was terrified of you. You always had this look, like you knew I was full of shit. Maybe that's why I pushed you away." He sighed. "I'm sorry I made you the cleanup crew. You deserved better." I paused the video, stared at the still frame, then deleted it. The last file was titled "For When It's Over." In it, he sat outside maybe the beach condo in Florida, shirt open, sunglasses on, drink in hand, like a man who believed he'd gotten away with it all. "They'll find this when I'm gone," he said. "So be it. I'm not asking for forgiveness, just recognition. I lived 3 lives, and I made it work. Mostly. That has to count for something, doesn't it?" It didn't. Weeks passed. I found myself avoiding mirrors, hating the curve of my mouth, the slant of my eyebrows, his echoes in my own skin. I threw away photos, burned some, kept a few in a box I labeled "Do Not Open." Mom tried to talk to me. I said I was fine. Beth stopped asking, but the quiet grew teeth. I started drinking again, just a little. Then more. The old habits returned like they never left. Late one night, I called Diane. I just needed to hear from someone who knew a version of him that smiled. She listened, said little, then asked, "Do you think he ever loved us? Any of us?" I didn't know. I visited Rachel's school play. I didn't tell anyone I was going. Just sat in the back. She played a tree, stood there, arms outstretched, swaying to piano music. She looked so proud. Afterward, I left before anyone saw me. I sat in my car for an hour, watching parents hug their kids. I never cried harder in my life. You'd think after everything, there'd be nothing left to ruin. But grief has layers. And betrayal. It doesn't just echo. It infects. Biff emailed me a week ago. Subject line: "Did you see this?" Attached a newspaper clipping. A local obituary from New Jersey. Jonathan Fields. Survived by his wife, Kyra, and daughter, Rachel. No mention of Diane. No mention of our mother. No mention of Beth. Or me. The last insult. The final rewrite. He got the death he wanted. Clean, selective, sanitized. I called the paper, demanded a correction. They didn't care. We printed what the family submitted, they said. I hung up shaking. What family? Which one counted? Beth and I met that night in Mom's backyard. She was lighting candles for no reason, like she needed to force warmth into the darkness. "So that's it?" Beth said. "We get erased?" "We were erased a long time ago," I said. "We just hadn't noticed the edit." Mom brought out lemonade. She didn't speak, just sat with us. Maybe that was enough. I pulled the clipping from my pocket and burned it in the citronella flame. Ashes fluttered, and I didn't feel better. The house is falling apart. Not metaphorically, literally. Cracks in the foundation, mold in the attic. The plumbing hisses like it's holding a grudge. I've been debating selling it. But something keeps me here. Not love, not nostalgia. Obligation. Road needs a witness. One night I found myself digging in the basement. Beneath the old tool shelves. Don't ask me why. Some twisted instinct. And I found it. Another lockbox. Smaller. Rusted. Inside, a journal. Not his. Mine. I'd written it when I was 14. Angry entries. Rants. Confessions. Pages and pages of wondering why he looked through me. Why he hugged Beth tighter. Why his eyes drifted past me at dinner. He kept my anger and never said a word. I read it, cover to cover. Felt the boy inside me screaming, wanting answers. Not closure, just truth. It's strange, feeling betrayed by someone who's already dead. It leaves you nowhere to throw the blame. No face to scream at. Just dust. I started seeing someone. Her name's Maren. She works in records at City Hall. Found her while filing property transfers. She asked once, "Do you ever talk about your family?" I said, "Only when I want someone to leave." She stayed. Beth's seeing a therapist. Good. She needs it. So do I. Probably. Mom's grown quiet, peaceful, or numb. She spends her mornings knitting, afternoons staring at the mailbox. No letters ever come. I've decided to write a second obituary. Not for the paper, for us. For the ones he left behind. Not the sanitized fantasy, but the record of damage. I don't want revenge. I want the truth to exist somewhere, even if it never gets read. Here's how it begins. Thomas Meyers, also known as Jonathan Fields and several other names, died as he lived. Compartmentalized, conflicted, and deeply dishonest. He was a father to many, and a parent to few. His legacy is not in the lives he touched, but the fractures he left behind. That's all I've written so far. But it's a start. They say you can't grieve a ghost. But that's not true. You can. You just do it slower, longer. It comes in strange shapes, like rage, like obsession, like numbness, that settles into your teeth. 3 months after the last of his secrets surfaced, I sold the house. I thought it would feel like liberation. Instead, it felt like losing something I never really wanted but didn't know how to release. Beth came to help pack. We didn't speak much, just worked, room by room, memory by memory. We filled 20 boxes with things we couldn't keep, but couldn't destroy either. His coats, his trophies, our childhood drawings he'd tucked away like proof he tried. I left one box sealed, and unmarked. For Rachel, maybe. One day, we closed the door for the last time on a Tuesday. Cold wind, dry sky. A bird circled overhead like it was watching the end of something. So what now? Beth asked. I shrugged. We let the ghost rest. You think that's possible? No, but I think we have to try anyway. The night before I left town, I drove to the cemetery. His grave was bare. No flowers, no notes, just a plain stone etched with Thomas Meyers and 2 meaningless dates. I brought nothing with me. Not even anger. I stood there and waited for something to rise in me. A final word, a scream, a goodbye. Nothing came. I realized then he'd taken enough. I walked away. Marin moved in with me a month later. We bought a modest condo near the city. Small balcony, morning light. She asked me once, "Will I ever meet your father?" I laughed before I could stop it. He's already met too many people. So no. She didn't press. Beth sent me a letter, handwritten. First time in years. I forgave him, she wrote, not because he earned it, but because I couldn't carry him anymore. He's not mine to carry, and he's not yours either. I read it twice. Then I read it aloud. Then I cried. Kyra reached out last week. She said Rachel was asking questions again. Harder ones this time. Do you want to talk to her? I didn't answer right away, but I knew I would. Someone has to. I found the draft of the second obituary in a desk drawer, still unfinished. I reread the words, still true, still bitter. I added a final line. He died in pieces because he lived in compartments. May his truths be scattered, and his children left whole. Then I folded the paper, put it in an envelope, and mailed it to no one. Some truths don't need an audience. Just release. This is where it ends. Not with justice, not with peace, but with understanding. And that's enough. He's gone. But I'm still here, still standing, still unbroken.